Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. My name is Leslie Milano, and I am the president of the Women's Democratic Club. We are so thrilled to have our chair of the DNC, Jaime Harrison, today with us. Let me just say a few words about WDC. For over 60 years, WDC has been a vibrant network of politically active men and women. We are active on the local, state, and national levels, advocating for the increased role of women in our democracy, championing the issues important to women, and working to keep all members of our society engaged and informed. This exciting speaker series today is just one of the ways that we accomplish that goal. And we have had many people come visit our members, people like Kristen Clark, right here you can see on the screen, who's Assistant Attorney General. Here's a list of others who we've had in recent months, actually. This is a great speaker series that we've had. We also have a very robust advocacy network. We have a great team that will be delivering Annapolis Day for us in February. We'll put something out very soon there. We do monthly happy hours. We have candidate forums, 3 upcoming in the spring, and we do issue advocacy as well. Our next speaker coming up, just put a little note on your calendar, Monday, October 18th at 12:30, we will have Martin Cal, who's a foreign correspondent and author who's going to discuss his new book with us. If you would like to submit questions, and we have a lot of questions so far, so we hope to get to them very quickly, we would like you to do that in the chat. You can chat Q&A, and that will come directly to us, and we will be able to answer those questions. Hopefully we'll get to all of them. We are so happy to have Jaime Harrison here with us today. He is the chair of the Democratic National Committee. He is a former aide to South Carolina Congressman Jim Clyburn. He's the first African-American chair of the South Carolina Democratic Party, appointed the associate chair of DNC in 2017. He was a candidate for US Senate from South Carolina, and many of you probably also donated to his campaign as I did. And he has a great educational background that you can see right there on the screen. I also want to introduce 2 other folks, our celebrities here in Maryland. We have with us Yvette Lewis, who is the chair of the Maryland Democratic Party, and we have Linda Foley, who is the chair of the Montgomery County Democratic Party. I'm going to shoot this over to Yvette, who knows Jaime very well, to say a few words for us today.
Thank you so much. I am so delighted to be here for a number of reasons. First of all, I was with you a couple of weeks ago for your event, and I saw the energy there. I'm looking at the number of people that are on screen today, which means that wasn't a fluke. It wasn't a one-hit wonder. The energy is really here with this group, and I am so grateful to all of you for all that you're doing here in Maryland and in other states, because you know we are good at exporting as well. So I wanted to say thank you very quickly to all of you. Thank you for having me, but thank you for the work that you're doing. But I'm also here because you have one of my absolute favorite people in the world on this call. And not just because he's DNC chair, but because he's just an all-around good guy. And I can't wait for you to hear from him. But I wanted to also remind you that as you continue the work that you're doing as part of this organization, I have one charge for you, one very important charge for you. When you go around, talk about the good news of the Democratic Party. Talk about the work that Democrats are doing. Don't be afraid to toot your own horn. But most importantly, as you talk about what Democrats do for you, be sure they know what Republicans do to you. That's important. And if we do that, we will win up and down the ballot next year, and in a way that will shock the world, because they don't expect us to do it because it's the midterms. Let's prove them wrong. They're very afraid of your vote. I say let's give them something to be afraid of. Thank you all so much. Back to you, Leslie.
Thanks so much, Yvette. Next, we're going to hear from Jaime. Without further ado, I just want to say a couple of quick thank yous. Thank you so much to the WDC board for putting this together today. And also your predecessor, Jaime, Tom Perez, was actually the one to connect us with you. So I wanted to give a shout out to him as well. So thank you so much. And we really look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Oh, thank you so much, Leslie. And yes, folks, I want you to know Tom called me multiple times. He said, I really, really, really want you to do this. And it would be really helpful for this group to hear from you and your vision for the DNC. And so I want to thank Tom. I thank Tom for a lot. Thank him for his friendship, his leadership. He gave me the keys to a really nice car. And I'm going to make sure that we continue to upgrade that car and really move it forward so that we can continue to move forward and deliver for the American people. So I thank Tom. I want to thank Diana also for working with Tom on this, and Linda, and of course my good friend Yvette Lewis. Folks, you have a national treasure there in Maryland in Yvette Lewis. She is hands down one of the best state party chairs in the country. And she's just absolutely fantastic. So Yvette, thank you for everything that you do and your friendship and your leadership as well. And Madam President, thank you for that introduction. Folks, it is so good to be with you all today. You know, my friends, before I say anything else, I also need to say thank you to each and every one of you. These past 9 months, President Biden and the Democrats in Congress have delivered big for the American people. Because of the hard work of folks like Montgomery County's own Representative Ratskin and Representative Trone, you know, the American Rescue Plan put shots in arms, checks in pockets, and invested much needed money in small businesses across the nation. The expanded child tax credit has already lifted 3 million kids out of poverty, and it's projected to cut childhood poverty in half. We've made healthcare more affordable all across the nation and right here in Maryland. And all of that is because of you and organizations like the Montgomery County Women's Democratic Club. Because each and every one of you worked hard to elect President Biden and Vice President Harris. Because you all had hope for a better future. Hope for leadership that would address the everyday needs of people across this nation. And because you all decided to act on that hope. So it's important for me that you make that connection. My friends, you know, I'm from South Carolina, and our motto down here is, while I breathe, I hope. While I breathe, I hope. You know, growing up in Orangeburg, hope was sometimes all we could afford. I'm the son of a teen mom. I was raised by my mom and my grandparents. My grandmother had an 8th grade education and picked cotton and did domestic work. And my grandfather had a 4th grade education and he laid asphalt. You know, my family worked hard to give me a good life. And my grandmother would often say to me, she said, Jamie, a hand up is a whole lot better than a handout. And I wish Republicans would remember that. I wish they would remember that their jobs as public servants is to deliver real results for everyday folks, to give them that hand up. I wish I could tell you that people like Kevin McCarthy was rolling up his sleeves and getting to work with us to grow the economy and invest in our infrastructure. But he's too busy catering to the insurrectionists in his caucus. I wish I could tell you Mitch McConnell still cared about voting rights. He certainly used to as a college kid at the March on Washington. Now he just calls my friend and mentor, Congressman John Lewis, a hero while standing in the way of voting rights legislation. He knows that the GOP can only win if they suppress the vote. And my friends, that's the difference. Republicans talk a whole lot. They love to tell you what they're against. They have no problem spreading lies and conspiracy theories, but they never act on our behalf. When the American people need results, Republicans disappear. They refuse to show up and do the work. Democrats, we deliver. And folks, this country needs leaders who deliver. But we can't lead if we don't win. So we've got to be laser focused on the midterms, and we've got to be engaged right now. The DNC has a winning game plan, but it's going to take all of us working together. We need your help to make sure we win big in November in places like Virginia and Pennsylvania and New Jersey, to make sure we send Senator Van Hollen back down the street to Washington in 2022 so he can continue to advance the president's agenda and deliver for the people of Maryland. And folks, I don't need to tell all of you, we need to flip the governor's office blue in 2022. So it can't just be while I breathe, I hope anymore, folks. It's got to be while I breathe, I vote. While I breathe, I organize. While I breathe, I donate. While I breathe, I knock on doors and send postcards. We've got to do everything that we can to communicate one simple message. If you're looking for leaders who show up, if you're looking for leaders who do the work and get real results, then you're looking for a Democrat. The midterm elections have nothing to do with red states and blue states, red counties or blue counties. It's about who shows up when you need them and who only shows up around election day. Democrats are there when you need them. And it's because we deliver. That's what this little D stands for on my lapel. Not just Democrats, but deliver. That's what we do. With the help of committed Democrats like all of you, that's why we're going to win big in 2022, right here in Maryland and all across the country. So I want to thank you all again for having me. It is an honor to be in this fight with each and every one of you, and I'm looking forward to the questions that you may have.
Great, thanks so much, Jaime. First question for you, it's a big one. What is the DNC doing right now in Texas to make sure women's safe access to abortion is preserved?
Yeah, well, what we're doing right now, not only in Texas, but across the country is first and foremost, we're working with the leaders in the House and the Senate on ways to codify Roe into law. And that's a big, big deal. I just talked with Speaker Pelosi just a few weeks ago about this and how we move forward on it. We're also working with the Texas Democratic Party in our efforts to make sure that support services are available to the women, because it is now the law of the land in Texas. And so the question is, what do we do in order to help women control their health choices? And so we are working with the Texas Democratic Party on that. But folks, the bottom line is this. In order to really affect the changes that are so necessary, we have to bolster our numbers in the House and in the Senate to make sure that we can protect the rights of all women to control their bodies. We have to codify this in the law. Now, you know, the reality of the situation is this. We got a 50-50 Senate right now. We need more bodies in the Senate. In order to get rid of the filibuster, in order to just get a majority rule on these things, we don't have the numbers yet in terms of Democrats who are willing to take that vote to do just that. It's not to say that we won't get those numbers over the course of the next few months, but I'm a pragmatic type of guy, right? The reality of the situation is we don't have them yet. So what do we do in order to change that? This is a break the glass moment we're in right now. This is a break the glass moment. And that means then we have to do all that is so important and necessary in order to change the policy to protect our most fundamental rights. I believe the right of women to control their bodies is a fundamental right. I believe the right for all of us to vote for who we want to vote for are fundamental rights. And those things have to be protected. And so, we're going to push as hard as we possibly can. But we know that our livelihoods and democracy are on the ballot in 2022. And a lot of these major decisions will be determined based on who gets to come back to Congress to help shape the agenda moving forward.
And so on that note, let's talk about the midterms. So we have the situation in Afghanistan. We have what's happening right now in Congress. I think Biden's approval is dropping slightly. I mean, that certainly can happen at this time of the ups and downs of that, in terms of the length of time he's been there. How will this impact the midterms, and what are the prospects for maintaining and expanding control of Congress?
Well, the bottom line is this: if the message is going into the midterms that Democrats deliver, then we have to deliver. And that's what's going to impact whether or not we are successful in the midterms. We did a great job with the American Rescue Plan, but there are two big pieces of legislation that are critical right now. And that is the bipartisan infrastructure plan, and that is also the Build Back Better family agenda that we have in Congress. Those two pieces of legislation are critical for us to give people a tree to hang their ornaments on, right? It is important for us as a party to be able to push that through, because it's at the heart of Joe Biden's agenda. And so that's why it's important that we ramp up the pressure even on our own members to make sure that they understand this, that the debate between 3.5 and 1.5 is a beltway debate. That is not a debate within the beauty shops and the barber shops and on Main Street. People just want damn stuff done, right? They don't care about the price tag. They just want to make sure that the things that they are struggling with within their families and their communities, that they can actually get done. And that is the charge that Democrats have right now. On the flip side, and I'd like to step back a little bit, we are having a family discussion. We are not a monolithic, I was on Stephanie Rule this morning and I said this, we aren't a monolithic party, right? And so this notion that Democrats just fall in line is, listen, folks, we are diverse. We look like America. We have all of the diversity of America. That's our greatest strength, but diversity also comes with challenges. That means then you got to work out and work through things, and it takes a little more time and it is a little more difficult, but the end result is much stronger as opposed to not having that type of back and forth. And so we're going to continue to push. I believe that this legislation is going to get done because it has to get done. And it will be much stronger going into the midterms when we're doing. Because the contrast is this, while we are trying to figure out how to help families with childcare and how to take care of our seniors with elder care and expanding Medicaid in states that don't have it and adding more to Medicare and climate change. What are the Republicans doing? Not a dang on thing, but obstructing and trying to figure out how Jeff Bezos can keep the huge tax cut that they gave him a few years ago. We are focused on the American people. They're focused on their special interests.
Thanks. We're getting a lot of questions about voting rights. So what specifically is the DNC doing to pass voting rights legislation? And when will that come up again in the Senate? What are its prospects?
Yeah, I mean, folks, the bottom line is this. Listen, the ball in terms of voting in the United States Senate. The House has done their work. They have passed several bills. There's now a bill in the United States Senate that has all 50 Democrats that are supportive of it, which is a big deal. But again, I'm very pragmatic and I'm cut straight to the chase. The question is, how do we get around the filibuster? How do we get around the filibuster? And that question has not been answered yet. I know that the president and the vice president are very much focused on
I'm not sure if I'm the one who's frozen here. No, okay.
No, he lost connection.
We lose connection, okay. We will look to reestablish that connection with him. We do have some of his staff are also on the call. So while we are waiting for him.
Hey, I'm back.
Okay, perfect. Wow, you're quick.
Yeah, sorry, I think my screen or something just froze. But I was saying, listen, I go straight and cut to the chase. It's straight, it's a shot with no chaser. I mean, the bottom line is this, folks, is that the House has done their work. They have passed the John Lewis voting bill. They passed H.R. 1. They have sent it over to the Senate. The Senate had S1 in consideration. They now have the John Lewis Voting Rights Act as well. And they have come up with a bill led by Manchin and a few others that has garnered 50 votes in the Senate. We got to figure out, how we get past the filibuster. And that's just the reality of the situation. I was just with Chuck Schumer last week, and he said, Jamie, I'm going to bring this legislation up again in the next few weeks so that we move forward. But the bottom line for us on the voting rights, unless we get, magically another senator or two, I mean, this may be one of those issues that is just, the reality is it is on the ballot in 2022. Now that makes it much more difficult for us, right? But this is the thing, folks. And again, I like to be real with everybody. We have faced hard and difficult things in the past. And we will continue to face hard and difficult things. But as my grandma told me growing up, Jamie, you control what you can control. I wish I had a vote in the Senate. I tried to get one, but the people in South Carolina decided not to give me one. But what we can control is what I'm working with Yvette Lewis and others on, which is how do we prepare for 2022, regardless if the Senate passes a bill or not. Because we can't sit on the sidelines and say, woe is me, they didn't pass a voting rights bill, because too much is at stake. The livelihoods of people is at stake. And so we got to do the best that we can in terms of preparation for the midterm elections. That means getting more people registered to vote. For the first time in almost 30 years, the DNC is back into voter registration, folks. I just announced last week that we're putting $5 million into about 10 states on voter registration, and we're going to expand that out. The vice president and I announced $25 million that we're putting in our I Will Vote initiative to put voter protection embeds in states to begin our organizing efforts now. So we're not going to sit on our hands and say, woe is me, look at what the Republicans are doing. Folks, we got too much work to do, and we got to be prepared. Yvette's moving forward and trying to push us on making sure that we have folks with identification so that that's not a barrier and that's not an issue. So there's a lot that we can do in preparation for this. They've thrown roadblocks at us before. We've gone over those roadblocks. Again, it makes it easier if we can get something done. It will make it easier if we can get something done in the Senate. But I can't sit back and wait for that to happen. We got to do the preparation right now.
So here's a question about Donald Trump. What is the next iteration of Donald Trump? Do we think that someone aligned with Trump and his brand of politics is going to win the nomination in the next presidential election event, and also in the midterms? Where do we see this going? We have another question there that in California, Gavin Newsom had tied the recall directly to Trump and Trumpism and the insurrection. Is that going to be an effective path moving forward for the midterms for us?
Well, Donald Trump is still present. Just a few weeks ago, Ronald McDaniel said that Donald Trump is still the leader of the Republican Party. So if he's still the face of the Republican Party, we're going to remind people of that. We're going to tie them to Trump as much as we can. We see that in right now. Terry McAuliffe is doing that against Glenn Youngkin in Virginia, because he's a Trumpkin, right? He is a Trump acolyte. And so it's important for people to understand who these folks are. We see that with Kevin McCarthy. Here's this guy who wants to be the Speaker of the House, who was willing to go pick through packages of Starburst to get the best kinds for the president. What? You're going to spend your time belittling yourself to go through bags of Starburst to pick out the pink ones and the yellow ones for Donald Trump so he can be happy? We need people who can lead, right? We need some serious people right now who can lead, and we're not getting that type of leadership out of the Republican Party. So we're going to tie them to Trump because they have tied themselves to Trump. So they will sink and swim and likely sink because they have tied themselves to the biggest loser in American politics ever.
So we have so many questions, but if we could just say 3 more quick questions, do you think you can stick with us for a little bit longer?
I can.
Okay, great. What is the DNC doing to stop gerrymandering in red states? And
well,
actually
folks,
everywhere.
Yeah, well, folks, this is it, right? We did not win the legislatures that we needed to win the last election cycle. And so therefore, in terms of the votes, if we don't have the votes in those states, the Republicans are going to come up with maps. So the only thing that we can do then in terms of stopping them are lawsuits. So I have set aside millions of dollars right now, and we're working with General Holder and Mark Elias and a number of folks in preparation for a lot of lawsuits to throw out some of these seats and some of these maps that are going to be drawn. And then in the states in which we do have Democratic control, my message to folks is, yes, we like fair maps, but, and hopefully we'll get to the point one day where we can all have fair maps. But in the meantime, we need to make sure that we maximize the seats that we can win. Because again, this is This is about the livelihoods of the American people. And if the Republicans are hard-nosed on the politics, then we have to be the same until we can have the blanket. I'm all for commissions and bipartisan commissions and all that other stuff, but when everybody can do them and not just the Democrats do the commissions and the Republicans draw the districts to their benefit.
So what strategy are you using, is the DNC using to really compete against the Republicans, a party that acts irrationally, lies, spews conspiracy theories, and in many ways is driven by hate? And if the answer there is to fight with rational thought and truth, then what is a communication strategy for disseminating that message far and wide until the election?
Yeah, well, I mean, bottom line is the first thing that we have to do is we're in power. We have to deliver on that power. We have to show people what we can do once we're given that authority to work on their behalf. And that's what you see right now with Congress. The second step is to make sure that we are organized enough across this country in all 50 states. And that's why I've gone back to a 57 state and territory strategy to make sure there are state parties, which are the conduits by which most people get their message about the Democratic Party, are as strong as they possibly can be. We've set aside $23 million in order to go back to that 57 state and territory strategy, largest ever investment that we have made in our state parties. And we are rebuilding and revitalizing state parties across the country to make sure in all states that folks are be able to compete and get their message out. We're also putting organizers on the ground right now. We're not waiting until next year, next August and September, to begin organizing and putting people boots on the ground to begin delivering our message to the American people. We're doing that right now. In addition, it is an all of the above approach: TV, mail, digital, radio, all of those, and even billboards, all of those, and ethnic newspapers are the manners and the methods by which we are going to get our message out. And we've already started. We started with the American Rescue Plans. We had billboards up all across the country. The Republicans who voted against the rescue plan, people knew about it. The ones who tried to take credit for something that the Democrats did, we made sure that we had digital ads pumped into on Facebook. So we're being very aggressive of getting that message out. And we will continue to do that. So it's an all of the above approach, but it's really two steps. We got to tell people what we did, which is important, so that they understand how we have delivered for them. But we also have to paint the contrast. We have to let them know what Republicans failed to do on their behalf. So when the Republicans vote against raising the debt ceiling again and jeopardizing our economy, we got to let people know that. When they vote against the child tax credit, we got to let people know that. And so that's part of how we plan to get that message out, but also part of what the message is going to be. There's going to be the contrast between how we have delivered and how they have obstructed.
Excellent, thank you. So two quick things. One is, what is the DNC doing to recruit successful candidates, sort of a proactive approach to win races in states like Florida and Texas?
Yeah. So the recruitment of candidates, and it's always good to know, the Democratic ecosystem is very broad. It's always good to know where certain things happen, right? So the DNC doesn't have a direct recruitment responsibility as it relates to candidates. That responsibility really lies with our state parties. But what we do at the DNC is supplement that, right? So take, for instance, you got in Florida, they have a governor's race. So the DGA, which is a Democratic Governors Association, works with the Florida Democratic Party to begin looking at folks who could be viable candidates for running for governor in Florida. And then they bring in the DNC to help supplement those requests. So if they say, well, Jaime, we got a few candidates and all, but we need your help to bring it home, to lock down that person, that's when the DNC gets involved. But the bulk of the weight of candidate recruitment for governor, for Senate, for state house, for Congress, that happens with the state party first and foremost, but also with a sister committee that is assigned to that particular group. DCCC takes the House of Representatives, the DSCC takes the Senate, the DGA takes governors, the DLCC takes legislative seats. And then the DNC is the backstop that helps with all. And so I've been having conversations with a lot of folks. They give me a call sheet, said, Jamie, we need you to call this person or that person. And we try our very best to make the case for why that person needs to run. And for big states and some of our states and some of these most important seats coming up, I pay a lot of attention. You know, I've talked to the Florida and the Texas state party chairs on a monthly basis, checking on the status of those races and how the DNC can be helpful to lock down candidates. I'm hoping Beto decides to finally to jump in Texas. He'd be great, but we got great candidates already in Florida for both governor and for the United States Senate. So definitely moving forward in both.
And speaking of the gubernatorial elections, is Terry McAuliffe in trouble right now for the Virginia governor's race? And what can we do here in Maryland to help?
Yes. So listen, that race is going to be really close, really, really close. And I encourage all of you to do whatever you can. You can volunteer, you can send postcards, you can knock on doors, you can make phone calls, you can send contributions to Terry himself, to the state party, who can spread the love across the Democratic ecosystem, because it's not only for Terry in that governor's race, but we also have other statewide in Virginia as well. The lieutenant governor's race is very important because the last lieutenant governor broke 60 some odd ties in the Senate in Virginia. And so that role is extremely important, particularly on choice issues and voting rights issues. The Attorney General, we all know the importance of the role of the Attorney General. So it's important that we win the re-election there, and we need to keep the House of Delegates in Virginia also. They have slim margins. So anything that you can do, again, from volunteering to contributing, all of it is extremely, extremely important.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us today. We ran over time and you just kept taking all of our questions. We have a few more questions. We might send them over to your office to see if we can get those answered, but we don't want to.
That's fine. You know, I can actually probably take one more if you want.
Okay, sure. Let's see. So let's see here, just coming back to my questions. We have a couple of questions around successful secretaries of states. So what is the DNC doing to ensure that the Democratic Party fields successful secretaries of states in the states that are trying to overturn or refuse to certify elections?
Thank you for asking that question. So since I became chair, one of the things that I wanted to do was do a better job of building a cohesiveness across our democratic ecosystem. So once a month, I meet with the heads of all of our sister committees, and that includes the Democratic Secretaries of State, Democratic Lieutenant Governors, the Attorney Generals, and what have you. We are right now working on a first of its kind fellowship program that we're going to launch with the Secretaries of State, the Attorney Generals, and the Lieutenant Governors. These are three very important roles that get very little love in the democratic ecosystem, and we only talk about them in a reactive fashion. Right? When the things have all fallen apart, and we're like, oh, we wish we had a Secretary of State. Oh, we wish I had Attorney General. Well, what are we doing in terms of actively recruiting and actively training those people right now? Jen Griswold is the president of the Democratic Secretaries of State. She's out in Colorado. She is fantastic. We have their list of states that they have prioritized, and we're going to be working with them to make sure that we, one, recruit the candidates for the office, train those candidates, but also help them to get the resources that is so important to win their races coming up in 2022. So we are keeping our eyes on that. And again, you know, you can contribute to Democratic Secretaries of State. Now, I'm sure they would love your contributions. And again, we as a party have to be much more proactive instead of being so reactive. And I think investing in those secretaries of state and helping with their campaigns is part of that proactive measures that we can take. And
you know, Stacey Abrams, we all are just so in her debt. She's done so much. I mean, basically helping us in huge ways to win the election. are we replicating nationwide what she did in Georgia? It sounds yes, but like maybe you could talk a little bit more to really what worked well for her and what DNC is taking from that and really scaling.
Well, I'm sure I can speak for Stacey here. The first thing that she will tell you is Georgia is not a byproduct of just the work that she did. Georgia was a collective work. It is when you have the entire democratic ecosystem healthy and working all in coordination with each other that you get what happened in Georgia. It really isn't on one person's shoulders. So they were able to focus on voter registration. There are a lot of C3s, C4s. There were a lot of grassroots organizations that did that, from the NAACP on to fraternities and sororities that really focus on voter registration. They also had a key thing in Georgia that they did was automatic voter registration through the DMV. Part of the reason why they've been able to register as many voters as they have is because as soon as you move into Georgia and you go to the DMV, you are automatically registered in that state. Millions of people have been able to get registered as a result. So one of the things I would say in Maryland, if you all are thinking, if you don't have it, automatic voter registration through DMV, because that was a big thing for them. And then you had a strong state party. It's really important to invest in your state parties because state parties are unicorns in the democratic ecosystem. They can do something that no other entity, including the DNC, can do. They can coordinate and work with both local and federal candidates for office. As DNC chair, I'm limited in terms of what I can do for local campaigns and candidates, because we are an entity that only can take hard federal dollars, whereas the state party can take both hard federal dollars and state dollars. They have two separate accounts. We don't have that. So that's why I often say this all the time. State parties, the health of your state party is a critical component for democratic success in your state. So work with Yvette, invest in the state party in Maryland, volunteer for them, because when you're able to do that, and do that on the local, your county level as well, when you're able to do that, you make it that much easier for your candidates to be victorious in the end. Because if a candidate doesn't have to carry the water of a local party or a state party and can just focus on their campaign, you make it that much better for them as it relates to actually winning their races. But in the South, for many of us, because our state parties have been so decimated and so weak for so many years, we've had to do the work of not only the state party, the job of a candidate, but we've also had to carry the water of the state party as well. And sometimes that is a weight too heavy to carry over the finish line. So again, it's working together in the democratic ecosystem, getting as many people registered as possible, educating the voters as much as you can through the various means that work, mobilizing those voters, making sure that folks have a game plan to get to the polls, and then protecting those voters once they get to the polls, but also protecting their vote once the vote has been cast. Those are the components to be successful, and that's what we're pushing state by state.
So one last question, very important question for us here at the Women's Democratic Club. What is DNC doing and what can DNC do to promote women candidates? Take Maryland, for example. Maryland is a very progressive state. We have we're blue, so of course, and many would say there's pockets of purple, but we have no women candidates except for one at our state level, and we have really no women in the highest levels of leadership in our state who are elected. So what do you think?
Well, one of the things that I did when I was a state party chair was I created this fellowship called the James E. Clyburn Political Fellowship, because we had the same issue in South Carolina. We didn't have a whole lot of diverse candidates, not only women, but diverse candidates in general. No Latino candidates, and some of our African-American candidates would only run locally and they wouldn't run statewide. And I knew that was something that we had to fix. We also, in terms of the democratic talent, people running campaigns, we didn't have a whole lot of diversity there as well. We created this fellowship. I actually got $50,000 from Jim Clyburn to actually do it. And I told him, well, boss, I'll name it after you because you gave me the money. And he laughed. And so he has continued to invest in it over the years. But this fellowship has transformed campaigns in South Carolina. We've been doing it now for 5 years. 60% of the graduates of the Clyburn Fellowship, probably close to 65% now, are women. And those women, when we had all these presidential candidates running down here, almost all of those campaigns were run by women in terms of the statewide campaigns. Many of the young women that have gone through the fellowship are running for state house, state senate. We now in South Carolina have an African-American woman who's running for governor and 2 African-American women who are running for the United States Senate right now. I just met with the new president of Emily's List. We're going to look at how we can partner with Emily's List on doing more fellowships and more trainings of women. So we got to get more women elected to office. We also have to make sure that we share with them the tricks of the trade, how you go about raising money, how you go about increasing your profile via social media. All of those things are really, really crucial and key. And, you know, I've been on the phone trying to get more, particularly Black women, to run on a statewide basis. The fact that we don't have any African-American women in the United States Senate at this point in time is problematic. And so, you know, on a national level, I've been talking with many of those candidates, giving them coaching on things that they can do and people they need to contact so that we can change that. Again, we're only as strong as our party, and we need to make sure that everybody has a seat at the table. And that's really, really important.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. What a joy it was to have you. We really appreciate the time that you spent with us. And we are looking forward to putting all of the your good words into action. We have a lot of people on this call who are very active and have been just at it for a very long time. So I'm glad that you were here with us to give us a little pep talk and to answer a lot of the burning questions that we have. So thanks again to Jaime Harrison from DNC.
Thank you, Leslie, and thank you, everybody. And again, thank you all. Some of you, I know you were very supportive of my Senate run, and I can't thank you enough for always being in our corner. So thank you again. Take care, everybody.
Thanks again. And we just want to remind everyone that we have another event coming up in just 2 weeks when we see Martin Kalb. And we also have a membership drive happening as we speak. So if your membership is not up to date, then please make sure that it does, because this is how we bring really exciting events like this one to you at no cost and at frequent pace. So thanks so much for everyone who participated today. We're really excited to be with you again in 2 weeks. Have a great day.